whole service over to novices, people who are nervous and, all of that. But it's kind of what John's done with this work since the very beginning. It's been unique and different, and it's, I think, what we all kind of love and gravitate toward, right? So this morning he has asked me to speak on the topic of being rooted and grounded in Christian service. So the sermon series will be Rooted and Grounded, and I'm specifically talking about Christian service in the church. So we all know what that looks like, right? I mean, it's serving in the nursery, it's greeting at the door, it's giving our tithes, it's all the Christian service-y things. But when we think about rooted and grounded, I want to dive into that a little deeper. Kind of overthink Christian service, if you will. So diving into the who, why, and how of a lifestyle of service, the Bible speaks directly to acts of service or using our Christian gifts in 1 Corinthians, which is kind of a weird verse to really think about as service. You'll hear it at a lot of weddings, right? So it's 1 Corinthians 13. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Who remembers this, the Gong Show? Dating myself. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but I do not have love, I'm nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but I do not have love, I gain nothing. He goes on to tell us in this verse what love looks like. And it's kind of convicting. Love is patient. Love is kind. Sometimes we can have that, right? We can be patient and kind. I got that. How about this? It does not envy. Ugh. It does not boast. It is not proud. Ouch. It does not dishonor others, is not self-seeking, is not easily angered, keeps no record of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth, always protects, trusts, hopes, and perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. And this is the part of the verse that kind of speaks to becoming rooted and grounded, putting down roots that grow out and make us mature. Like we're no longer a child Christian, right? We become an adult Christian, a grown-up Christian. And so it wraps up saying, when I became a man, I put away the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am known. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. So, but we're talking about service, right? But we do it in love. And so the key takeaway and why I use that verse is, what we learn there is we could literally be performing major miracles. We could be laying hands on the sick or speaking in tongues or doing all kinds of amazing things. But if our heart is wrong and the love isn't there, then we missed it. We missed the point. We're a clanging cymbal. So we're talking about serving in love, right? And so as I was overthinking this, because I need to stand up here and talk about it, I thought about love, like what does it mean to serve in love? And so I'm going to reference a book that we've talked about in church before when John talks about touching on the elbow. He likes to touch on the elbow, and that's the 5 Love Languages book. And so if you are not familiar, how many have read this book and are familiar with it? So it's really just a handful in the room. So if you haven't, I would suggest it. It's not just for couples. it's for any kind of love relationship. And I would even propose, and I'm going to propose in this message, that it's just for loving people in general. I think it's important. The premise of the book is that we give and receive love differently. Like, John likes physical touch. He talks about the touch on the elbow, right? And Jamie likes gifts. She's told us that. So we receive love one way, but we might give love another way. Maybe you like to cook supper for your family. That's an act of service. That's how you show love. So this book is just really good if we're going to talk about being people who serve and love. You should understand, what does that look like to different people? How do they receive that, right? So I looked to this book, and here's what I overthought. God created all of us, and he is love, right? Personified. So he created our preferences for giving and receiving love. So I think God himself can and should be loved using any and all of the love languages. So when we enter into Christian service motivated by love to God, we should operate in those love languages. So what are they? So we can give God gifts, right? What do gifts look like in Christian service? So to God, we could give him our money, our tithes. Some of these are obvious, but what about our will or our sacrifice of something that we know he's calling us to sacrifice? So, and in all of these points, I just would say there's a way to give it to God, and there's a way to give to others, right? So there'll be times when a little gift, even just a little gift, is the right thing to do for another human, right? What's another way we can love God? Quality time. So again, it's kind of obvious to honor God and love him. Quality time might mean what you're doing right now. You come to church, you worship, you learn. Maybe it's a meditation. Maybe it's just the first 5 minutes when you get out of bed in the morning that you give over to the Lord. Or your quiet time. Maybe it's taking the time to make a phone call to another human that you know you should make. We all do it. I do it, right? Oh, I know I should call mom today, or I know I should call whoever. But then we go, oh, we're so busy, blah, blah, blah. Quality time is a way that we can serve, and we know it. We feel it in our spirit when it's the right time to do that, yes? Another way is words of affirmation. So words of affirmation to God, I think those look like prayer, right? Setting aside a prayer time. Worship is certainly words of affirmation to God. To other people, other humans, maybe just a kind word, a smile, you look nice today. I really like your hair. Just something gentle and kind to say to someone else. And I can tell you what it never looks like is gossip. Gossip is never words of affirmation, something we should probably just take right out of our life, right? If it's hard, though. Another love language is acts of service. So in the church, it's pretty obvious. We could be greeters. We could make coffee. We could run slides. You could do this. We could, there's a million acts of service that we can do in the church. But there's others, too, like for other humans, right? Because we do it for God, but then we do it for other humans. So maybe it's making a meal for someone who just had surgery. Or, you know the things that come to you. But acts of service is another way we can serve each other in life. And then the last one is physical touch. This was a little trickier. I'm like, how do we do physical touch with God? This is kind of weird. But I think seeking his presence, outside of these four walls is a physical touch. If we just still ourselves, he says, be still and know that I am God, we can receive a physical touch with God. And of course with each other, it's really easy to see. You can tell when somebody needs a hug or just a pat on the shoulder. That's a really obvious act of service or a way to love our fellow humans just with our touch. So I think God wants to meet us and use us in all of those love strategies. But how do you really know that God wants you to show love for him by serving others, right? How do we know it's not enough just to serve God? Can't I just live a quiet life and serve God and why do I have to be all about all these other humans that I'm walking this planet with? Well, I think the reason that we know is because God says it in his word. In John 21:15 through 19, Jesus and Peter are talking, and he says, when they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And he said to him, "Feed my lambs." And he said to him a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And he said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." And Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep." So what does it mean to feed sheep? And there's enough young people in here that'll tell you it's not sheep. It's not that guy. It's people, right? The Lord was saying, feed my people, love my people. And he said it 3 times, so it matters. And so it is important to do acts of Christian service, not just to God, but to others. But there's a multitude of ways to feed sheep, see? They're in the field all together with this guy. There's the baby sheep with the bottle. They're all different sheep, right? All different sheep in the flock, and all different ways that they need to get fed. So we need discernment, right? When we do that. A baby sheep gets fed differently than the adults. Some of those sheep are in groups, so maybe it's a Bible study where they're getting fed, or reading through the Bible in a year all together. Maybe they're a party in the park, and those little sheep are getting fed, right? So it's all different ways. So a couple of weeks, and I hope this doesn't feel bouncing around. I just kind of did this as God kind of gave me words, and as I was looking through it, it felt sometimes a little disconnected, but I hope it'll all flow together in the end. But a couple weeks ago, John did a one-off Sunday. It hit home for me, and I think it probably did for a lot of other people. And he talked about an attack of the enemy that became almost like a lifestyle. And I think that's partly because of the days that we live in. The devil roams about like a roaring lion, the Bible says, seeking whom he may devour. And he's not really looking to eat us, right, physically, but he wants to beat us. He wants to beat us up. And I thought, when John gave that sermon, I thought, I bet there's a lot of people in this room who feel that same way. Like, beat up, like it's constant, like, stop beating me up, devil. And so it kind of occurred to me for a lot of years. 2 of my favorite verses were Galatians 6:9, "Be not weary in well-doing, for you shall reap in due season if you faint not." And Romans 8:28. And I thought it was super cool, the connection that Yes, I Will song speaks to Romans 8:28. And we didn't touch base on songs or message or anything. We all kind of did our own pieces. But that Yes, I Will, the other verse that really has resonated with me over many years is Romans 8:28. "For we know that all things work together for good to those that love God and are called according to his purpose." But in recent years, I'm a little bit sad to admit that some of my vigor as it relates to these 2 verses has been diminished. And I've only been made aware of it recently, but I almost maybe think that the testing and struggle of life has kind of beat me down to the point where I'm like, oh yeah, be not weary in well-doing. Great. Let's have some more weariness, Lord. And maybe there's others of you in the room that kind of feel that way, like we are through a season. I mean, even just in this area, COVID and the flood alone were enough, but we're struggling with other things, health issues or growing up issues or all kinds of issues, and everyone has them. And so going back to the whole idea of feeding sheep, there's other tired people in this room. John isn't the only one who's under personal attack. Of course, you might be, and you might be, and you might be. And so we're all sheep, and we need to feed each other, right? And not just in these 4 walls, but outside these 4 walls, to look for opportunities to serve and love sheep. And the point I would make next is when you do that, do it out of love, like we already talked about, and seek God's will for whatever it is you might say or reach into, because I think as the church as a whole, and sometimes we get a rap for being judgy or being a certain way. And I think that's when we get ahead of God and we're speaking before we're seeking, and we can then do harm. So we just have to enter into that when we're going to minister with other people in such a gentle and thoughtful and seeking God way, right? So do no harm. So just kind of a little recap, right? So we talk about service and love and making your love intentional and digging into those 5 love languages to figure out, how to best serve different people or our God using our love languages as you're serving through God, and watch for sheep who need fed. It's kind of the recap. See, I did flow, right? It flowed. Okay. So I recently read something, thought it was really profound, and I posted it on my Facebook page, and I would like to read it to you because I think it's not Bible, but it speaks directly to service, and which is the point of this whole message, right? And it says, life is better when you are happy, but life is at its best when others are happy because of you. Be faithful in touching others' hearts. Be an inspiration. Nothing in nature lives for itself. Rivers do not drink their own water. Trees do not eat their own fruits. The sun does not shine for itself, and flowers do not spread their fragrance for themselves. Living for others is a rule of nature. We were all born to help each other. No matter how difficult the situation you found yourself in, still do good to others. And I'm going to wrap with this, because there is one more thing, and it's another one of my favorite sayings, and it's from Mother Teresa. Because when you are going to step out and serve, when you are going to help others, resistance will come. And sometimes resistance is going to look like people, okay? So I don't know, maybe some of you have heard this, and maybe some it will be the first time, but this is one of my very favorite sayings. So remember this as you serve in life. People are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. When you spend years building what you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give the best you've got anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. So your service on earth is always between you and God. So I want to thank you for your time and attention, and I pray that your 2024 would be one of love and service. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for bringing that message to us this morning. And I get to be in charge of the walkout sound this week. And so I listened to a lot of different songs this week, trying to find one that would kind of speak to our Rooted and Grounded series and just growing in our faith and growing in our relationship with each other and all that. Anyway, I kept coming back to, you're going to laugh because it's Toby Mac, but